Kicking off another great hour here on the Steve Gruber Show, coming to you live from the heart of America here in Studio G. Always fighting for you and this country from the foxhole of freedom. You can also find me on Twitter, X, Truth, Rumble, Facebook, of course, and TikTok, too. All in this place to save this country. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, former Attorney General Bill Barr, who's no fan of Donald Trump, says the rogue judges ruling against the president are out of line and that they're going to lose. Number two, President Trump, when asked, says he would be happy to stop funding the propaganda networks of PBS and NPR. I mean, why do we pay for that anyway? I've asked that a long time. And number three, the big story today continues to be allegations being leveled by a writer from The Atlantic, a publication that has been fervently anti-Trump for years. And one of its reporters, Jeffrey Goldberg now, who was added to a Signal chat group, and by all accounts an accident, to discuss the pending attack on the Houthi terrorists in Yemen. But after getting their asses kicked by President Trump all over the board for the last 64 days, the left is eating up the narrative being pumped out by Goldberg and all the like-minded, or is it small-minded media companies that are craving anything that can knock Donald Trump down? So along comes Goldberg. The same guy, by the way, that wrote about Donald Trump calling fallen American military personnel suckers and losers, a story that's long since been completely discredited and debunked. Goldberg was also the man that pushed the narrative that Donald Trump somehow gave white supremacists a pass in Charlottesville during the protests and claimed he said the white supremacists were fine people. Another long debunked story that was discredited years ago. But you need to know who you're dealing with. And I lay the groundwork so you know who exactly this is and what the Atlantic is like. They will say anything, print anything, regardless of authenticity or accuracy. If they think it will get clicks and eyeballs, then they'll feed this Trump chow to the quivering masses suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. And they simply do not care that none of it's true. Which brings us to Mr. Goldberg's new claims that he was on a Signal chat with several high-ranking officials inside the administration while they were discussing back and forth war plans for attacking the Houthi terrorists in Yemen. President Trump and his national security advisor, Mike Waltz, acknowledged that Goldberg was accidentally included by an aide to the NSA, but there were no war plans discussed, and there was certainly no classified information included in the thread, none. The fact that there were no sensitive items included in the discussion was verified by numerous members of Trump's inner circle who were testifying on Capitol Hill on unrelated matters yesterday. Tulsi Gabbard confirming no classified information in this accidental inclusion in this Signal chat. Listen.
Contact the defense secretary or others after this specific military planning was put out and say, hey, we should be doing this in a skiff?
There was no classified material that was shared in that Signal
So then if there was no
chat.
classified material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways. These are important jobs. This is our national security. Bobbing and weaving and trying to, filibuster your answer. So please answer the question.
Signalgate. They needed something. It's all they've been on their back foot for 64 days, Democrats. Getting spanked like a child by Donald Trump and his administration. This is a big nothing burger. A lot of noise, clanging pans together, but it's going nowhere. Director Ratcliffe further pointed out no classified information involved, and it was all legal. And first implemented by the Biden administration, the use of Signal as a communication tool to keep everything secret. Listen to this.
It is permissible to use to communicate and coordinate for work purposes, provided, Senator, that any decisions that are made are also recorded through formal channels. Right. So those were procedures that were implemented. My staff implemented those processes, followed those processes, complied with those processes, and finally, just please, so my communications, to be clear, in a Signal message group were entirely permissible and lawful and did not include classified information.
Entirely permissible and lawful. And the idea that somehow using encrypted apps to protect private conversations is unusual, simply not true. In fact, it's just more noise. CIA Director John Ratcliffe says Signal is a standard issue app, just like you heard him talking about there. It's what people use and have for a long time. Listen.
So that we're clear, one of the first things that happened when I was confirmed as CIA director was Signal was loaded onto my computer at the CIA, as it is for most CIA officers. One of the things that I was briefed on very early, Senator, was by the CIA records management folks about the use of Signal as a permissible work use. It is. That is a practice that preceded the current administration to the Biden administration.
Yeah. But let's be clear, it's all the Democrats have. It's all they have. Like I said, Signalgate. They'll talk breathlessly about it, about how American Navy, Air Force, Army personnel were in danger, grave danger because of this. They weren't. They'll make as much noise as possible, talk about the incompetence of the Trump administration. Or they could let the media focus on the childish antics of Jasmine Crockett as she insults the governor of Texas for being in a wheelchair. Of course, the Democrats are going to go with banging pots and pans together because that's what it sounds like when Jasmine Crockett talks. And by God, they need her off the front page, don't they? Oh, by the way, classy Jasmine Crockett, here she is taking that cheap shot at Greg Abbott. Listen.
Thank you so much, Morgan, because we in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now. And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot-ass mess, honey. So yes. Right, okay. All right, I'm going to move on.
Governor Hot Wheels. Classy. Clearly, they do not want that to be leading the news anywhere, so they have to embrace this story, whether it's real or not. Turn it into hay, whatever it takes, which brings me back to the source of this very convenient story that has the left-wing media in a complete tizzy. What about the writer that has been discredited numerous times, writing dishonest or even fabricated stories about Donald Trump? Maybe we should hear what Mr. Goldberg has to say. How about that? When asked straight up about the Signal conversation he was in, Jeffrey Goldberg dodged answering any actual question about what was in the thread, and he insists there's classified material that he saw, but refuses to back it up in any way. Fascinating. Listen.
Now the Secretary of Defense and the White House press secretary have said you're lying, have said there are no war plans there, have said there's no classified information. So the obvious question is, shouldn't you now demonstrate it? Shouldn't you publish the text?
No, because they're wrong. They're wrong.
But how can you prove that you're wrong? Maybe should you provide them to the House and Senate Special Committees on Intelligence, maybe? I don't know.
Wow. Well, you want to become my lawyer?
I'm throwing this out there, Jeff. I don't know. I mean, look, the
No,
White House
I mean, look,
press secretary an hour ago said
I feel like, no. I mean, I obviously, let me just put it this way. My colleagues and I, and the advice that, and the people who are giving us advice on this, have some interesting conversations to have.
Oh, please.
About this.
Oh, please. But, he waffled, he wavered, he wouldn't answer the question. I'll answer all your questions when we come back. Good morning, it's the Steve Gruber Show. All right, I want to repeat this for you because I want you to take away some information that's important. I don't believe that Jeffrey Goldberg has much evidence at all. If anything, he was on a string. The question is, why was he there? They know who this guy is. He's a Trump-hating, he's a hyperbolic Trump-hating writer. Not really a reporter, just a writer, fiction writer oftentimes. You know, Suckers and Losers. He's the one that wrote about that. Completely discredited, completely debunked many times. But I want you to hear this again. I asked about can you put up some proof of what you got? And this is a friendly interview. Can you give me some proof? Here's what he came back with.
Now the Secretary of Defense and the White House press secretary have said you're lying, have said there are no war plans there, have said there's no classified information. So the obvious question is, shouldn't you now demonstrate it? Shouldn't you publish the text?
No, because they're wrong. They're wrong.
But how can you prove that you're wrong? Maybe should you provide them to the House and Senate Special Committees on Intelligence, maybe? I don't know.
Wow. Well, you want to become my lawyer?
I'm throwing this out there, Jeff. I don't know. I mean, look, the White House press secretary an hour ago said
I feel like no. I mean, I obviously, let me just put it this way: my colleagues and I, and the advice that and the people who are giving us advice on this have some interesting conversations to have about this.
Yeah.
But just because they're irresponsible with material doesn't mean that I'm going to be irresponsible with this material.
He's got nothing. He's got nothing. And then Goldberg, the repeatedly discredited writer from the far-left Atlantic smear machine, smears those that he cannot prove did anything wrong. It's all very convenient for a guy who wants to sell books. Here it is.
At moments like this, when they're under pressure because they've been caught with their hand in the cookie jar or whatever, they will just literally say anything to get out of the moment, to get out of the jam. And that's okay. I get it. I get the defensive reaction. But here's the thing. My obligation, I feel, is to the idea that we take national security information seriously. And maybe in the coming days, I'll be able to let you know that, okay, I have a plan to have this material vetted publicly. But I'm not going to say that now because there's a lot of conversations that have to happen about that.
Makes sense.
All of my inclinations, as you can tell, including withholding the name of the CIA undercover officer, all of my inclinations are. I have a pretty clear standards in my own behavior of what I consider information that I consider to be in the public interest, even if it's technically classified or not, information that's in the public interest and information that's not in the public interest. And I'm just going to I'm sticking to my principles here.
He has no principles. Let's just be clear. Again, same guy that came up and made up the story about suckers and losers, discredited, tried to accuse Donald Trump of siding with white supremacists in the aftermath of Charlottesville. This guy is no more credible than Bob Woodward in recent years. And I mean no more credible than that guy. He doesn't have anything at all based on those non-answers. And yes, the left is going to milk this for all it's worth, Signalgate, and try to keep this story alive for as long as possible. And it's clear why. They need something. They need anything to get their footing back. Donald Trump has throttled them for 64 days. This is the first time they've had a lead in a news cycle in 64 days. So you'll hear about this ad nauseum, even though nobody cares. After about 24 hours, people are going to go, what are they talking about? Nobody cares. The Houthi rebels were pounded. The sea lanes are being reopened. Ones that Joe Biden allowed the rebels to have the upper hand. That's not happening anymore. America's kicking their ass. And the Democrats' ass, which is why they're clinging so tightly to this. But it will die on the vine, I can assure you. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz says the investigation is underway, trying to figure out how the rogue Atlantic writer was in the loop in the first place. But they'll know soon enough. And the real news is that the Houthis were devastated by a death punch from the U.S. military. And more is coming for them. Listen.
There's a lot of journalists in this city who have made big names for themselves, making up lies about this president, whether it's the Russia hoax or making up lies about Gold Star families. And this one in particular, I've never met, don't know, never communicated with, and we are looking into and reviewing how the heck he got into this room. But I'll tell you what, the world owes President Trump a favor. Under Biden, global shipping was shut down. Pinprick attacks, months between them, our destroyers being fired upon dozens of times. President Trump took decisive action with his national security team, took out the head missileer, knocked out missiles, knocked out headquarters, knocked out communication sites. And for once, as we hear, as you all hear from every one of our allies, thank God for American leadership again. Thank God for American strength. You're welcome.
All right, there you have it. So you got to ask yourself, what is this about? Well, it's about the Democrats trying to save themselves from more embarrassment at the hands of Donald Trump. That's a fact. It's the Democrats trying to save themselves from more embarrassment at the hands of Donald Trump because he has throttled them, like I have said, for the last 64 days. Now, on another note here, my friends at Hillsdale College say, where are the Gruber listeners? Where are the folks that watch the Gruber show? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you're not competing with some of the other folks around. I said, really? And so I said to myself, I need to talk to my folks. So folks, listen. Hillsdale College has 40 free courses. I mean, these courses are amazing. You want to learn about the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, C.S. Lewis, the ancient Christian church and its involvement in the establishment of this great country of ours, this Judeo-Christian country we have. Well, you can find out all of that for free at gruberforhillsdale.com. There's no cost to enroll. You can take these incredible classes, spend your time well. gruberforhillsdale.com. You owe it to yourself, and hey, just do me a favor, check it out. You're going to be glad you did. And send me a thank you note after you do. Please, gruberforhillsdale.com. I'll be right back.